Hey everyone, welcome back to 996. The Howl. The most apt answer to this video is everything. Every game, it's a new wrinkle to how the Coyotes are managing to lose. It would be awesome if there's just one glaring problem we could all look at and try to improve. But no, it seems like the wheels have fallen off pretty much every department surrounding the Arizona Coyotes who are on a 10-game losing streak, the first time since the 21-22 season. Last season, even though they were intentionally trying to lose games, they managed only two 9-game losing streaks, never in a million years ever touching a 10-game losing streak. So here we are. The goal for this season was to be more competitive, especially in the month of March. It seems like the Coyotes being competitive sort of ended at the beginning of February, and now we're back to the mode of looking ahead to the lottery and losing as much as possible to increase your lottery odds. Unfortunately, it came a bit too early than what we were expecting. For people who are like, oh, the Coyotes are so much better compared to last season, even though, like I said, they were intentionally trying to lose last season. Obviously, they were intentionally trying to be competitive this season. Their points disparity was so good throughout the year. Now we're at a point where this team this season is only 4 points ahead at the same game mark as they were last tank season. So let's get into it. Goals for per game is at 2.3, even below 2.5 goals per game. It needs to be at 3. That's the standard. If anything, higher than 3 if you want to make the playoffs. So that's bad. Goals against per game, 4.6 goals per game. 4.5 goals per game they're letting in per game. You can't win games like that. Shots for per game is about 25 shots per game. There was one game here at Carolina where they mustered 11 shots on net in 60 minutes of hockey time. Just abysmal, unacceptable there. Shots against per game, almost at 36 shots per game. So on average, they're being outshot 36 to 25 every game these past 10 games. I'm not even sure how you win games at that point. They almost had it, almost had it against Edmonton where they played one good period. They knew how to shut down the Oilers by only playing the puck in the Oilers' defensive end, never letting the Oilers come into their end with speed, and it worked for 20 minutes, and then the Oilers were like, oh yeah, we can just throw the puck on net, and the puck will probably go in the net. Power play hasn't been good either. It's about 15% in these past 10 games. The power play has let them down in certain games, going 1 for 7 against Florida, going 1 for 6 against the Avalanche, and 0 for 4 against the Philadelphia Flyers. If you want to say, hey, have the Coyotes blown leads? Yes, they have. 3 third-period leads they've blown in the past 10 games. Against Nashville, they had a 4-2 lead in the third period where Nick Schmaltz's sister shotgunned a beer, and then everything went to dust after that, losing 5-4 in overtime. They had a 3-2 lead against Philadelphia on the road. And then just now against Edmonton, they had a 3-2 lead in the third period, and they ultimately lost that game as well. What about early goals? Do you want early goals? Yes, the Coyotes have committed a lot of early goals in these past 10 games. Against Florida, it was 1 goal in the first 2 minutes of the game. Against the Tampa Bay Lightning, 1 goal in the first 24 seconds of the game. Against the Vegas Golden Knights, 2 goals in the first minute and 20 of the game. Against Carolina, 1 goal in 15 seconds to start the game by a former Coyote, Jordan Martinook. And then against Edmonton, 1 goal in the first 2 minutes and 12 seconds. So blown leads, early goals where they get down early, dig themselves a small hole here and there, can't dig themselves out of. If I were to choose one word why this is all happening, I think it's adversity, and I think it's the time of year. All other teams who are gearing up for the playoffs are unlocking that next gear, that extra gear, elevating their game, taking that next step, playing a more style of hockey with more structure in their game, This league now in the months of February, March, April, it's not freewheeling. It's more structured. The teams are comfortable in their own systems that's going to take them to the playoffs and hopefully give them success in the playoffs. And the Coyotes did not do that. They did not unlock that extra gear. They didn't elevate their game. They sort of try to play the same style they've been playing the whole year. And now they're hitting these teams. I mean, look at here. I mean, I don't know what easy games there are in this past 10 games. Like, you're facing teams that are like competing for the Stanley Cup. For sure, the first three, and Vegas as well. Nashville, Minnesota, Philadelphia are right in the thick of it, battling for playoff position. They've elevated their game, even though they're not going to be, in the conference finals in their respective leagues. Carolina, we already talked about them. The Avalanche, Oilers, they're competing for the cup as well. So nowhere to hide, no easy games. I'm sure if the Coyotes had an Ottawa game here, a Ducks, a Chicago, a Columbus game here, they would have won. They're playing good enough where they would beat those teams, but now they're at a point where they got to look in the mirror. They're sixth last in the league. They got to put themselves in the conversation with those, four teams I just mentioned. So let's go to the players. Is it anyone's fault on this team? A lot of the fans, Discord, Reddit are bullseyeing in on Schmaltz. I'm not sure why. It's just a whole committee of people not playing up to their value or standard of hockey, except for Keller. Always doing good, always a 0.8 per game or a point per game. He's at 8 points in the past 10 games. Dylan Guenther, 6 points in the past 10 games. Good for second on the team in this losing streak. The Guenther's looking good. It seems like he's getting better every game. More confidence with his shot. He is on power play number 1, which may be a reason why the power play is not doing too well. The second unit's not doing well either, which has Cooley on it. For Guenther on the power play, I see that the Coyotes rarely pass it to Guenther for a shot. They always like to play the side of like Durzi to Keller, and then Keller behind the net to Kerfoot, or sometimes it's Zucker, and then Schmaltz is in the bumper, or sometimes it's Hayden. So they're always going for that Durzi to Keller, and then Keller will decide to go behind the net, or the bumper to Schmaltz, and then Schmaltz will shoot it, or Schmaltz would pass it back to Keller, who one time's in the net. It's rarely going the other side with Guenther. I thought that was interesting how Guenther's on PP1. He is a sniper. They should feed him more shots and unleash that shot a bit more. I just don't see them using it that often. Going back to players, Cooley, 5 points in the past 10 games, 4 goals in the past 10 games. So he's actually scoring now. I had to double check. It feels like Cooley scores in games where the game's pretty much over, but he'll get an odd goal here or there. I'm pretty sure he had 2 goals in this Southeast road trip where the game was like 6-0. So, he is, you got to give him credit. He is scoring, but, it's in random moments where he's scoring, but he's doing well. I like this new line of Cooley, Keller, and Guenther. Every night in these past 10 games, it's new lineups. The Andre Tourigny and coaching staff, they're just throwing lines in a food processor at this point. Nothing seems to be sticking. I liked the Guenther, Hayden, Cooley line. Now it's, like I said, Guenther, Cooley, Keller line. That line looked good tonight. Schmaltz against the Avalanche was put on a third line with Ruzicka and Zucker. Against Edmonton, he was back on the top line, if you can call it a top line, with Hayden and Kerfoot. So Schmaltz seems to be going all over the place, along with pretty much everyone else. Carconi in and out of the lineup. Ruzicka, I mentioned him, not really moving the needle. I liked his first game against Philly, and then don't really notice him much after that. If you want to talk about injuries, are the Coyotes injured? Is that why they're losing? They lost Ingram in the third period of the Minnesota games. So no, they've only gone 3 games without Ingram. His numbers weren't looking good these past 10 games, 0-4-1 with an .872 save percentage. Vejmelka's taking the load now. He's 0-4-0 with an .888 save percentage. If you see, this only equals 9. We had a rookie goaltender play against Edmonton and McDavid. Villalta who I wasn't comfortable with him in net. I know they didn't know what to do. Do we throw Vejmelka on a back-to-back with Avalanche and the Oilers, and then is he going to be ready during the week against the Maple Leafs? You got to give Vejmelka rest. So unfortunately, they just had to play Villalta against the Oilers. A lot of these goals, Edmonton, like I said, realized, let's just throw pucks on net. This is an American Hockey League goalie and see what happens. Villalta not really good in a butterfly position covering the net. Pucks are just going through him while he's standing still, not really compact and being a proper NHL goalie. I know he's young, he's a rookie, but that's a tough situation for the Coyotes to put him in net there. Ingram should be back by the end of the week or next week for the road trip. Back to the players, I like that Zucker and Dumba are playing way better because they're unrestricted free agents and they're on my trade bait board. So the better they are, the better return we'll get. I think Dumba now, I think he could get a second round pick. I think he's elevating his game. He's physical. He's a veteran presence. I think any playoff team would love him as a bottom pairing defenseman. Zucker, maybe a third round pick, if anything, if you can get a sucker for Zucker, sucker of a GM to get Jason Zucker on their team. Kerfoot, 4 points in 10 games. He's on my trade bait board. I would rather they keep him. They got him on a 2-year contract, but he's doing okay. Moser, 4 points. I was really upset with Krause and Bukestad after the Avalanche game. Bukestad had 0 points in 9 games, and then he scores 2 goals against the Oilers, so I can't be mad at him anymore. And Krause, 3 points in his past 10 games. He's got to be way better. And Durzi, only 2 points in 10 games. He's our offensive number 1 defenseman, only mustering 2 points in 10 games. It just can't happen. You can't have like a guy like Michelli, Schmaltz, Zucker, Kerfoot, Durzi, only 1 goal in 10 games. That's like an 8-goal pace over a course of a whole season. These guys aren't 8-goal per season players. They're like 20-goal per season players. So they got to bring it up, and pretty much the defense has got to get it together as well. In the injury front, I mentioned Ingram. The only common denominator, the only player who has missed all these games, I won't talk about Travis Boyd since he got injured in November and hasn't played, but Troy Stecher has been the Coyotes player who has missed all 10 games, and it seems like the defense is just way out of sorts 5-on-5, not covering the front of the net well, letting players alone all in front. We saw the Martinek goal versus Carolina. 15 seconds in the game, he was literally all alone in front. There was no defensive Arizona Coyote near him. If Troy Stecher is a reason why you go on a 10-game losing streak, there's probably bigger problems than that. I know I'm being facetious here, but yeah, seems like everything's going wrong. They got a chance Wednesday against the Leafs, who they went undefeated against last season. Maybe they could break the curse against the hometown boys of Austin Matthews and Matthew Nye. So that's it for me. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.